Do you want your city to look more realistic, organized, and very well planned? Then you came to the right place, because I started the series of tips and tricks for a realistic city, in which I already covered the residential, commercial, and office buildings. And today I'm going to talk about the industrial areas. If you haven't watched the other two videos, you should definitely do so by clicking the links in the top right corner or from the description below, as they contain all kinds of information necessary to get you started. I'm gonna jump right in by explaining what's the deal with the industrial buildings, because things here are a little bit more complicated than before with the residential, commercial and office buildings. And after that, I'll show you a few ways to build realistic, organized and well-planned industrial areas, and a few tips and tricks to always keep in mind when planning. So with that being said, I have another spreadsheet available for you, but this one looks a little bit different from the other spreadsheets, because this time it's not about how tall or what type of buildings we're gonna get. This time the spreadsheet is about the probability of buildings spawning with or without a smokestack, and the odds are not really in our favor. Now let me show what I'm talking about. I have 3 5x4 buildings that spawn the same asset, but as you can already see, they have a few differences. First of all, they are owned by two different companies, Soed and Grinder Rock. We can see that they have different colors, fences, chimneys, etc. The ones owned by Soed even process the same materials, wood and timber, and they still look different. One even has a chimney producing smoke leading to air pollution, and the other does not. So there is no 100% way of laying down industrial buildings without getting smokestacks, except for the 2x2, 2x3, 2x5 and 2x6 slots. Even if you were to use the developer options, which I do not recommend you do, because it makes the game unstable, can lead to crashes and can even corrupt your save game from what I've heard. When you select the asset from the list and plop it down, you can see how it looks by default with the empty logo and no details, but after you unpause, the game will randomly choose a company to settle in, and it will change the appearance of the building to whatever combination of colors, smokestacks, AC units, etc. But I don't blame the devs for this. I mean, it's a very good way of getting as many different buildings as possible without the need of a very long list of entirely different assets. Now let me explain this spreadsheet a little bit. Let's take the 3x2 lot size as an example. It has a total of 7 different asset types, 6 of which have 0% probability of spawning with a smokestack, while only one category is able to spawn buildings with a smokestack. I tested this using the developer options, and I plopped 10 buildings from each and every level 1 asset to see how many spawn with a smokestack and how many don't. So for this lot size, that one category of assets has spawned 8 out of 10 buildings with a smokestack. And my results tell us that for the 3x2 lot, there is just an 11% probability of getting a building with a smokestack out of all 7 asset types. These percentages may differ from one city to another. These results are from my city only. And the sad part is, when the buildings upgrade in levels, chances are the smokestacks may appear and disappear again on the next level. So who knows, my results may or may not apply to your city. At the end of the day, we're all playing the same game that has the same algorithm, so you can give them a try. But if you want to skip all the spawn and delete game, just use the 4 lots mentioned above that have 0% spawn chance, and you'll have a clean and smoke-free industrial area with minimal effort. This could have been so much easier if the devs kept the feature of marking buildings as historical as we could in City Skylines 1. So the appearance of the buildings will remain unchanged even if they upgrade to higher levels, but I hope they'll add it in the future. Personally, I don't mind a few smokestacks here and there, because in real life industrial buildings process all sorts of materials, and heck, even the heating of the building leads to some kind of fuel being burned if it's not heating with electricity, so it still requires a smokestack. At least in City Skylines 2 there is no smog, dead trees and purple soil in the industrial zones. We're gonna start by choosing a nice big area, preferably near a body of water, that can ensure access to ship routes if the map you play on has ship connections. Also, take a look in the info views at the air pollution and water and sewage tab, where you can see the wind direction so your pollution isn't carried over populated areas, and where water deposits are located, because they will get contaminated, so keep in mind to never pump water from that underground deposit. Then make sure to flatten the entire area as much as you can to keep things organized, and be aware of the height at which you flatten everything, because you want to keep a rather small distance between the land and the water level so the quays, piers and harbors will look realistic. For an industrial area to function properly and to be able to sustain the large and increasing number of goods coming in and out of the city, you need to have a serious network of roads, rails, ship routes and planes. By offering so many ways of transporting your goods, you're taking the weight of the road shoulders, meaning less traffic, thus reducing congestions, accidents, air and noise pollution. Of course, depending on which map you're playing, some connections may not be available for you, so try to make the most out of the ones you have. A few notices here. As you may already know, in City Skylines 2 we got building upgrades as a new feature, like increased storage, range and processing capacity, which in most cases come at the cost of also increasing the building's perimeter or adding new access ways that, if the building is not placed correctly, they can be rendered inaccessible. Now let me show you what I'm talking about. If we look at the cargo train terminal, by default it comes with just a single rail line, but as soon as you select it, you can see in the upgrades list that you can add an extra line for an extra train as well as a warehouse. warehouse. Now, depending on where and how you place this building and if you surrounded it with other buildings or roads, you may find yourself in a situation where you have to bulldoze and replan some of your industrial area. If there are only some small buildings blocking the way for the second track, that won't be much of a deal. But if you place something big like a power generator or a unique factory, then finding a new spot for it won't be easy. These tips also apply to the cargo harbor and the airport, where the track connection is an optional upgrade. Another thing to watch out for these two buildings is the placement direction. If you plan on building the harbor or the airport the way I did, like an artificial peninsula, then you must place them on the left side of the road. If they are placed on the right side of the road, when you add the railroad connection, it will be oriented away from the mainland and into the water. That is because the rail exceeds the perimeter of the building only on one side, so you can connect it to the main line from any side you want. Please keep this in mind, because when I plopped this building for the first time, I had to rebuild the whole pier along with the surrounding road network just because of that railroad connection. Now back to building. After you place all the nodes down and connected everything up, it's zoning time. If you were to take a real-life company and think about what it contains, the answer will be parking lots, offices, storage areas, and production areas. That's in most cases, of course. So, what I like to do here is to use the 2-lane 2-unit road and make a few larger rectangles. Think of them like the whole company containing all 4 kinds of buildings that I've mentioned. Now use the 1-unit 2-lane road called alley to make all kinds of pathways inside the bigger rectangle. For example, I'm gonna start here with the entrance, place a parking lot here, also near the entrance is where offices are usually located. Maybe build a road here, why not? Build some more here in the back, and maybe I'll add a secondary entrance. Now for the zoning, I'm gonna use the lots that have the smallest chance of spawning with a smokestack at level 1, and if you want to have a chance of getting a storage building or a warehouse, use the lot size that can also spawn this type of asset. But if the game doesn't need more space for storing goods, the probability of spawning a storage building is rather small, but still exists. In some areas, I'm gonna leave some space between the buildings and the surrounding roads. This way I can get this feeling of a fence and that those buildings are part of a bigger company. In the meantime, I'm gonna plop some beautification and maybe some pathways, and done. We have a bunch of buildings that altogether make for a realistic and good looking company. I only got one building with a smokestack, but I'm gonna leave it that way. To make everything look more dynamic, don't forget to randomly place bigger buildings like depots, recycling centers, water treatment plants, signature factories, and more. Now that I've already mentioned the developer options in this video, I'm also gonna show you how you can step up things a little bit. But like I said, you do it at your own risk, as this can lead to crashes and save game corruptions. So far for me, the game has been pretty stable while using them. I did experience these crashes, but never a saving and corruption. And still, I always double save before starting to use the developer options. To activate the developer options, you just have to right click on City Skylines 2 in your Steam library, select Properties, and write this line down in the Launch Options text box. So, if you look at the harbor area with the piers and all, we can already imagine what kind of buildings we are gonna find here in real life. Mostly warehouses and storage buildings. Press the home button to activate them, up in the search bar type this, scroll down and plop some warehouses, but don't forget to build some roads in the back, because as you can see there is another access door, so it will make everything look more connected and realistic, like I talked about in the episode about the commercial and office areas. Add some agriculture and oil storage buildings and a few office buildings to act like the main administrative building, and that's it. If I were to use the developer options to also build a bigger company like in the first example, I would do it this way. Again, start with an entrance, maybe a parking lot and an office building, and I want this company to look like a company that stores and processes cereals. So for this one, I'ma place some agriculture storage buildings, and from the spreadsheet I will choose only the assets that don't have smokestacks at level 1 from the tables on the right, where I listed all the assets with all the lot sizes that have or don't have smokestacks based on the same test that I did to put together the probability table. Now, if you take a look at what we built, we'll see a very nicely organized company storing and processing cereals, but at the same time we wasted a lot of space and we didn't even create that many workspaces. If we go and select the storage buildings, we will see that they are and will remain empty for the most part, because the game doesn't need that much storage for the production buildings to function properly. So yeah, while it may look great and like everything is connected, it's kind of impractical. My recommendation is to stick with the classic way of laying down industrial zones, so the algorithm can do its thing in spawning production buildings as well as storage buildings when needed. And use the developer options just to add some specific buildings to a specific area, like I did with the harbor area or some fuel storage at the airport. Now, let's talk a bit about the specialized industries as well and be done with this video because I already filled your head with a lot of information. Like in City Skylines 1, specialized industries are split into 4 main categories: agriculture, forestry, ore and oil. And now in City Skylines 2, some of them are again split into few subcategories like agriculture into livestock, grain, vegetable and textile farming, and the ore category split into stone, coal and ore mining. If you were to open the economy window and head to the production tab, you will see all these 9 branches appear in the materials tab, serving the city with raw materials. Almost every specialized industry has to be placed in a certain area for it to function. You can't just build them everywhere and expect them to produce something, except for livestock farming and stone mining. All the other categories either need fertile land, forests, ore and oil deposits, and to see where all these areas are located, you can either click the Natural Resources tab from the Info Views windows, or by selecting the industry you are interested in to show you just the resource needed for that very industry. So let's take advantage of these two industries and fill the weirdly shaped areas from the industrial zone, because placing normal industrial buildings will not make for an organized and realistic look. To do that, just choose one or the other, plop it down, draw the area point by point following the surrounding roads, and you're done. If you further want to adjust the workable area of the building to better fit the roads, just select it, click on the area tool, and adjust or add new points where needed. Oh, and one last thing, let's make an example for the other specialized industries as well. Let's assume that the city has a deficit for grain and you want to build some grain farms to help with the demand. If you have fertile land in the already bought map tiles or in the other tiles adjacent to the ones you already have, then the job is simple. But if the fertile land is way outside your city and you only have 2 or 3 expansion permits, what you have to do is look for the closest fertile land to a highway and a body of water. Buy one tile that includes both highway lanes to be able to make a connection, one for a river, lake or whatever to be able to release the sewage, and as many as you want on the fertile land to build your farms. For the services, if you happen to have a main electricity line running near the highway, you can plop a transformer to power your farms up from the main grid, or you can build a wind turbine as it's cheaper and also produces electricity that can be added later to the grid or exported. Water can be provided via a water tower or a groundwater pumping station if you happen to have any underground water deposits in that area, and the sewage can be released in the nearby lake or a river until you can connect it to a water treatment facility in the future to get rid of the pollution. I hope you learned anything from this video and enjoyed watching it as much as I enjoyed making it. Then smash that like and subscribe button, because other goodies are coming in the future and you don't wanna miss any of them. Also, don't forget to leave your thoughts in the comment section and follow me on social media. Bye bye!